Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video, and today we're looking at the Vetterli-Vitali Infantry and asking, is it set to beat the Martini-Henry at its own game? Now if you end up finding this video helpful or enjoyable, then I genuinely appreciate taking that split second to hit the like button as always. With that being said, the reason for today's focus upon the Vetterli Infantry in comparison to the Martini-Henry Infantry is that I've been seeing the idea bounced around on some forums and by some content creators that they're somehow in direct competition. Now when I briefly used the weapon, I really didn't get that feeling at all, so I went back to reevaluate and I can now give you my comparison, tips and overall review of the Vetterli and its place in the game. I'll also briefly talk about using it without auto-rotation because, as I mentioned in my buckshot blaster video, that mechanic can have far more of an impact upon the usage of potential one-shot kill weapons. But the majority of the video will focus upon using auto-rotation because, let's be honest, that's one of the key reasons why the vast majority of players use the Martini-Henry. Auto-rotation plus extreme damage and a close range sweet spot makes the Martini-Henry extremely lethal at close to medium range. Now the Vetterli seems to be being placed in the same category because its sweet spot range is actually closer than the Martini-Henry's. So initial thoughts would be that it's therefore even more lethal than the Martini at close range, right? Well, in theory that has some value, but in practice to me it just doesn't feel like that. Now part of this I'll need your input for if you've used the Vetterli, but I'll get to that in a minute. The first thing I want to mention is that the close range sweet spot assumption relies on a perfect world assumption, that being that you're going to be hitting that sweet spot on an extremely regular basis. Well, in reality most players aren't, not as regularly as you would really be required to for it to have that much of an impact. Throw into the mix that the closer you are to the enemy, the more vulnerable you are when using a scout. I think most would agree that the Martini-Henry already sat in a near perfect spot where the short range sweet spot is concerned, and this also means that the Vetterli has its sweet spot drop off much earlier too. In fact, it drops off before something like the Russian 1895 even starts to do its max damage. So this is pretty limiting also sometimes. You're forced to get very close in order to take advantage of its strengths, and this plays into the perceived weaknesses of the scout class as a whole. But the main thing that many people seem to be neglecting to consider is that the Martini-Henry isn't the beast it is primarily because of the sweet spot, it's because of its damage. The Vetterli has the same max damage as the SMLE MK3, the Russian 1895 and other such weapons. The Martini has a higher max damage. This allows for far more reliable one-shot kills generally. It can kill people even if the bullet passes through their arm before their chest, for example. Without this high damage, the Martini loses a lot of what makes it special. So sure, the Vetterli can chamber 4 rounds rather than 1, can fire more quickly and has less recoil. It's adept at body shotting and then finishing with a pistol, as you've been seeing in lots of the clips so far. And that's something the Martini relies upon from time to time as well. But none of this truly matters where the Martini-Henry is overall concerned. It's part of its charm for one thing. It feels different, it's powerful, but also that one shot can do so much damage that it offsets the need to then reload in most cases. It makes it worthwhile. And the Vetterli has the same slow bullet velocity as the Martini-Henry, but without what feels like a lot of the reward. Add to this that the hit registration with the Vetterli just felt off for me, like really unreliable. So this is where your input can come in. If you've used the Vetterli, then let me know if you felt this way too, because I'd really like to know if there's something in this or if it's just lag that I'm currently struggling with. Now as I said I'd talk about at the start of the video, let's quickly look at playing without auto-rotation. And I get that the Martini isn't necessarily a go-to weapon for these players that don't use auto-rotation. It's quite unforgiving in this circumstance and is pretty much transformed by auto-rotation. But at least you can expect the enemy to die if you hit them from close to medium range most of the time. With the Vetterli I just didn't feel that way. Yeah, you get follow-up shots which helps, but other weapons do the same and allow you to play more effectively from a safer distance. Your opinion may differ from mine and you can let me know in the comments below if so, but this just doesn't feel like an optimal choice for playing without auto-rotation in my opinion. It just doesn't feel like the absolute blast cannon that the Martini does, and this feels somewhat less rewarding to get kills with. When you're not using auto-rotation, every kill with the Martini feels special, and again, it just feels more reliable. The Vetterli just didn't feel like something I could trust. So with that being said about playing without auto-rotation, on the whole, it isn't a bad weapon. I just don't see a lot of the hype that it's getting in regards to challenging the Martini-Henry Infantry. It's good in the right situation, but it doesn't feel special in the same way to me. It doesn't feel powerful like the Martini, and its strengths are somewhat negated by its class weaknesses. I just feel that there will be better options for most players. But this is all just my opinion. What do you think? There's a link near the bottom of the description to help to support the channel for $4.99 a month. If you're feeling especially generous today, it will be hugely, truly appreciated if so. And feel free to like, favorite, and subscribe. I'm GetGoodGuy, and I'll see you next time. Laters.